This is Stephen Nojiri, and this is another Tada Genji tradition video. This is the next video in the espionage series, which was requested by some of the viewers. And so in the first section, first video, we looked at the big disclaimer, and in the second video, we looked at the fundamentals of espionage to the Tada Genji and the Kusunoki tradition. And I provided to you the Tada Genji, fundamental Tada Genji teaching on espionage. And in this video, we're going to look, and we also looked at Kusunoki in the other video. We're going to look at Kusunoki again here, as you can see on your screen. But we're looking at Kusunoki not just because it was requested, but also because it exemplifies the need for multiple roles or multiple functions within a successful espionage team or an espionage assignment, espionage mission. The teaching we're looking at is called Defeating Your Enemy Without Open Combat. And it is exactly that. It's a technique that's meant to defeat the enemy over time without openly engaging in combat. Now, there's other techniques for fighting the enemy in open combat. This one specifically is sort of the role model for espionage, because if this technique is done correctly and everything goes well, you can bring an enemy down without ever having to actually bring soldiers onto the field and fight. So, this method involves a team comprised of 7 key roles. And the first role is the team leader. Right? Sharp, minded, loyal, honest, clean-spirited. This guy is actually the hub of the wheel, for lack of a better word. This guy has unquestionable loyalty. This guy's morals are top-notch. He's part of an espionage team which is engaging in propaganda, manipulation, potentially assassination, burning things down, causing civil discord, all of these issues. But he himself is a real straight arrow. And he's ultimately in charge because the guy that's in charge ultimately has to be of unquestionable moral fiber. Following that, we have the tactician. Again, he's the plot master. This dude's really smart. This guy's very clever. He still has to answer ultimately to the team leader, because the team leader is the one who's going to ultimately make sure everything stays clean and in order, right? So the team leader and the tactician, plot master. Next, we have the scouts, the eyes and ears. They gather data through various means. Now, of course, in the actual Kusunoki teaching, these 7 are the teaching is much more complicated. I'm only presenting to you during this video, I'm only presenting to you a very basic summation of the teaching. In future videos or future publications, whichever, the full document will go into all the detail, etc., etc. So don't think that the documents are this simple. I'm just presenting to you, for the sake of time and simplicity, these summaries. So the scouts, when it says they gather data through various means, the original text actually has a lot more there, but we don't, these videos are already as long as they are, so we're going to go into that. But then we have, next up, we have the manipulator. And the manipulator, they secretly meet with individuals to secure betrayals. And then the Wetworks team. Again, Wetworks is my word. That's not what the document actually says. But in modern language, Wetworks, or these are the shock troopers, the Wetworks team. If there is need to assassinate someone, they do it. If there is need to burn something down, they do it. If there's if you want to start a war between 2 gangs, you send them to go and beat up one gang, and then the manipulator spreads propaganda that it was done by the other gang. But these guys are the muscle. If you have an asset, like a spy, somebody on the inside, and they get caught, and you need to get them out because they have data that you still need, then you would send these guys, the Wetworks team, or the muscle of the team. So these guys, they conduct single target assassinations and rescues. They can, pretty much any time that you need someone to put foot to ass, these are the guys that do it. Then you have, and now you may say, but I thought you said that this was defeating the enemy without open combat. These guys don't do open combat. This isn't 500, 2,000 something horses, and all of the different pikemen and all of the different, there's no actual armies here. these guys do like small night raids, right? So you might have to, these guys will fight people during the course of the conspiracy, but it's not considered open combat because they do these they do one night raid. They burn that building down. They kill that guy. They do something here. It's not open combat between two armies. So next up we have the gearhead. All right, literally again, those are my words. The gearhead, they build, fix, and develop tools and weapons. That is critical for the espionage team. You've got to have somebody who can build it, repair it, and come up with things that may be needed at the time. And then the last member is the map or the math person, the master of the numbers, the number cruncher, handles all calculations and handles the maps. So these 7 roles are for the Kusunoki technique called defeating your enemies without open combat. You must have at least 7 individuals to fill each of these roles. Now in the text it does point out that there's a couple of these roles that can be done by one person. So there's a few of them that can be shared by the same person. But ideally, you would have a minimum of one person for each role. So as I said, each of these roles has its own teaching and instructions, and over time we also see these roles bend into new roles. So blend and bend into new roles and names, but the function remains the same. So even though the terms used in the original document might change over time, right? For example, the word shinobi doesn't appear in the original document. In other words, in this teaching is developed and written down before the word shinobi becomes used regularly by the Kusunoki tradition. So the word shinobi doesn't exist in this document. However, the functions presented in this document do later on we see the word shinobi associated with some of those functions. Okay? But the key point here is the function, right? So, and even if a single person is doing multiple roles, the function still exists as an independent and unique function, right? Like I said, a samurai being called shinobi can fill multiple roles and serve multiple functions, but each of those jobs, each of those functions is still uniquely singular to that function. And this is why the quote-unquote job description of the shinobi no mono is so varied from one tradition to another, because the function matters more than the name. So once we look at these following, the Tada Genji's 5 points and the Kusunoki's 7 roles and Sun Tzu's 5 spies, which becomes Kusunoki's 6 shinobi, as I explained in a previous video. The Sun Tzu 5 spies becomes the 6 shinobi later on in Kusunoki-ryu. Once we look at these, we can start to understand how you're not supposed to just pick one explanation or one teaching and run with it. You're supposed to use all of the teachings and give yourself a lot of material to work with, right? So the Kusunoki's 7 roles doesn't conflict with its 6 shinobi, because you, as a samurai, you would not care about, oh, which one of these am I using? You would only care about succeeding in your mission, and therefore you would build a strategy from anything that you had been trained in. Thus, it is fine to study various models of espionage, and that is exactly what the samurai spies and the samurai asymmetrical warfare teams of the past did. They learned multiple models, the Chinese models, the Sun Tzu model, the 6 secret teachings models, the Genji model, the Kusunoki model, the etc., etc., etc. And then once they had all of these different tools available to them, they would create a strategy without any concern about, oh, well, I'm using this one. Am I allowed to use this one too? Yes, you can use anything from any of them. Build a strategy from what you know.